for the EverQuest franchise. That doesn't mean a lot to you since you've never played it. So EverQuest Next is, we didn't want to just make another MMO. We didn't want to make EverQuest 3. We wanted to make something that was very different from what's already out there. So we looked at all the MMOs we've ever played, and we went through all the mechanics and found the things we liked and didn't like. So we started with our lore. EverQuest has been around for about 15 years, so that's a very rich history. So we're doing a reboot of the lore, kind of like what J.J. Abrams did with Star Trek with the new movies. So you'll see places you recognize and faces you recognize, but it won't necessarily be the same or the same stories. This is an Ashfed. This is an area in EverQuest Next. We're building EverQuest Next with the Forge Light engine, which we used for PlanetSide 2 also. We like the engine a lot because it does a really good job with shadows and draw distances. It's a very powerful engine. We're really going to push it to the very limits of what it can do with some of the things that we're doing. This is Theron. Has anyone played EverQuest or EverQuest 2? Alright. So you guys may remember or recognize this though. This has been reimagined for EverQuest Next. It's a jungle. We really wanted the jungle to feel like a jungle. So it's dense, it's humid. They love Theron. But you can see the realism in the environment. For EverQuest Next, we wanted to have authentic day-night cycles. So this is what that's going to look like in the game. Now, we're not going to do true night, like total darkness, but we do want to make it dark because we find that people play games differently depending on whether it's day or night. We think that's really interesting. There's design space we can work with. So these are some of the character races in EverQuest Next. We started with the dwarves. The dwarves are, they're pretty much what you would expect. They have beards, they're grumpy, they live in the mountains, they like to drink, they're dwarves. We've changed our elves a little bit, and we've gone in a pretty different direction with our dark elves. You'll notice that they have horns. Everyone loves dark elves. They have horns, and that's because a long time ago, they may have been somehow related to the dragons. But we're going to get into that more as we go. These are our ogres. Now we put our ogres through a fitness training program. So they're in a lot better shape than they used to be. They've lost some weight, they've gotten more organized, they're pretty cool. These are our Karens. They're cat people. Now we've shown the lion a lot, but there's also going to be other types of cats. Tigers, panthers, jaguars, cougars, that sort of thing. So these are our humans. And one of the things that's really important to us as we design our characters is we want our characters to have very expressive faces. And we want you to be able to see that from very far away. So we've exaggerated the eyes and the mouths a little bit so that it's easier to see at a distance. It's easier to see at a distance. And this is what it looks like. You get a wide range of emotion out of these characters. This is important because we have a technology called SOE mode. And what SOE mode does is it allows you to turn on your webcam and your face becomes your character's face. So whatever you're doing and reacting, that happens in the game immediately. So if you're laughing and having a good time talking to your friends, or you're yelling at your raid party because they suck and they wiped again, they'll know exactly how you feel. We think this is really cool for role players and machinima creators, and are just generally excited about it. This character is named Jelena. She's a human wizard. Here she is in the game, so you can see some of these expressions from a little further back. There's also a lot of body language and movement in the expressions. So we wanted you to be able, even when you're just standing around talking, to have a good time. This is Kishar, our Karen warrior. They're cat people, so they need cat emotes. They don't want to look like humans, so we gave them cats. We're also going to do the one where they do this to clean themselves, and then the one where they fall asleep on your keyboard. We're really excited about that. So one of the things that we found in most games that isn't that much fun is traveling. MMO worlds are huge. You spend an awful lot of time going from place to place. And when you're doing that, if you're anything like me, you just hit the auto run button and you hope for the best. You hope you're not going to be stuck on some wall when you come back. For EverQuest Next, we didn't want that system. So we're creating something we call heroic movement. This is like, it's like parkour. Your character is going to be able to vault over things, pull themselves up on ledges, double jump, and just interact with the environment in a whole new way. This is what it looks like in the game. So you'll see a lot of these things don't require button presses. The double jump obviously does, but sliding down the hill or when she vaults over here, that's just automatic. Now, this is a video of two of our developers to show off the feature, and they were having so much fun going around that they started racing. So now they're racing. Jelena uses Flash, a teleport ability, to get ahead. And then Kishar uses his leap. And you'll notice that neither of them is following the path that we set out through the area. They're going their own way because the path is not the shortest way through the area. As heroes, they can choose their own way to move. Now, in EverQuest Next, there's a lot of movement in the combat system. So there are a lot of combat abilities that have movement in them. The characters use them to get around the world as well. So that's a little bit about how the characters in the world look and feel. But what really makes EverQuest Next special are these four things that we call our holy grails. And these are things that, as game designers, we've always wanted to do. And when we talk to other game designers, they're things that everyone has always wanted to put in games. But for whatever reason, technological limitations, or just wrong place, wrong time, no one has ever been able to do them before. So the first of our holy grails is we wanted to change the core game experience. In every MMO, you're basically just playing Dungeons and Dragons. By which I mean, and I love Dungeons and Dragons, but by which I mean you create a character, you choose a class, you level up, you unlock a tech tree, and you get to the end of the content. If you decide you don't like the class, you want to try a different one, you have to start a new character with a new name and do the whole thing again. It's kind of a long process, and we thought we could do better. So in EverQuest Next, we have multi-classing. What this means is, so in EverQuest Next, you're going to start with one of 8 starting classes. Then you're going to go out into the world and adventure. And you're going to find over 40 classes available in the world to collect. When you find one of these classes, you're going to have some options. You can stay with the class that you're playing. You can switch to the new class, or you can take the classes and combine them to make a class that's what you want to play. So for example, you can take that wizard teleport ability and put it on your rogue, so your rogue's able to get behind people really fast. Or you can take a backstab ability from the rogue, you can put it on the wizard, so they might get a damage bonus when they're behind someone. You can see that as you're collecting 20, 30, 40 of these classes, your ability to customize your character and play the game the way you want to play it is going to go way up. Another thing we wanted to look at was we wanted to make weapons actually matter. In most MMOs, weapons are just DPS sources. They're basically just numbers. You swap them out because of the number. In our game, your weapon choice matters in that it changes the mechanics of how you play. So a class has 2 weapon expertises. In the case of the warrior, a 2-handed longsword and a mace and a shield. Now, if the warrior is using the mace and the shield, she'll have abilities like shield bash, so she'll be able to push characters around and knock them out of the way and really control the space around her. If she's using the 2-handed sword, she's going to have abilities like whirlwind that are going to let her spin around and damage enemies in a wide radius. The second of our grails, this is the one that when we realized that we would be able to do this, we realized that everything was going to change. We were going to have to completely reevaluate how we make MMOs and what you can do in them. So the second grail is destructibility. We wanted you to be able to destroy anything in the world, anywhere, anytime. And in EverQuest Next, you can. Now, to do this, we had to create an entirely new way of building worlds. We had to build the worlds out of tiny little pieces so you'd be able to knock them down. Those pieces are called voxels. as we were doing this, we realized that it wasn't just about the terrain, it was about everything in the game. Even combat involved this creation and destruction. So I'll give you an example of that. In this video, Jelena is going to fight two kobolds. She's going to throw up a voxel wall to block their way. They're going to break through it. And then she blows up the bridge to kill them. This gameplay is not available in any other MMO ever. What I love about it is there are actually several different ways Jelena could have killed the kobolds. She could have, for example, blown up these two pillars and dropped that arch on them. She could have just used her abilities to do damage to them. In this game, not only your class and your enemy matter when you're considering your strategy, you also have to take into account the terrain. The terrain becomes a weapon and a trap. So, for EverQuest Next, we're thinking a little bigger with our NPCs. So, in this video, Kishar is running away from something, and that is the Iron Golem. Now, every time this guy takes a step, he leaves a giant footprint in the ground. He walks through those trees like they aren't even there. Now, in most MMOs, think about what would have happened. You'd have seen that monster, and you'd have run into that castle. The monster would have come after you. He'd have gotten to the door, and he'd have seen that he couldn't get into the door, so he'd walk away, and you'd be safe. In EverQuest Next, you're not safe just because a giant monster can't get through a little door. He's just going to smash that castle. The next rail is my favorite, and we call this one a life of consequence. This is our emergent AI system. We wanted the characters in our game to be able to make decisions, to think, to actually be smart. Let's take, for example, orcs. Now, in most MMOs, if you deal with orcs, this is how it works. A game designer has put down an orc village, and then they put down an orc here, and an orc here, and an orc here. And every 15 minutes, those orcs respawn. And in some of these games, the same orcs have been respawning in the same place for 10 or 15 years. That's not the kind of game we want EverQuest Next to be. So what we're doing is we're tagging the entire world so that our NPCs can understand what the world is and make decisions. So if there's a forest, we'll describe it as a place where you can gather wood. If there's a town, we'll describe it as a place where you can trade. Then all we have to do is give our characters likes and dislikes, and they can make decisions about what sorts of things they want to do. So in EverQuest Next, instead of having these static spawn points, we're just going to release the orcs into the world, and they're going to wander around, and they're going to avoid things that they don't like, and they're going to find things they like. So, as an example, what do orcs like? Well, they like attacking merchants and stealing goods. They like killing player characters. They like setting up their little villages, long walks on the beach, and, just being orcs. What don't they like? Well, orcs don't like guards. They don't like cities. They don't like laws. They don't like getting their asses kicked. So what an orc is going to do is they're going to wander around and avoid those places and look for places like this. Lonely stretches of road where merchants are taking their goods between cities. They're going to set up their villages there and just rob every merchant that goes by and kill every player character that goes by until enough people band together and go and kick those orcs' asses so many times that this place that they like starts to feel a lot like the places that they don't like. And when that happens, the orcs are going to pick up their village and they're going to go somewhere else. So let's check in again with Jelena and Kishar and see what they're up to. They're wandering around in Huron, and they encounter an earth elemental. Now, it's important to note in our game, NPCs can damage the environment too, just like that. So now, what's happened here? The Earth Elemental went to use an attack that blew a hole in the ground, and it turned out there was nothing underneath, so these guys fell into it. When you're designing a game where everything can be destroyed, even the ground, you have to ask yourself, what's under the ground? Because if you're going to blow it up, there has to be something there. So in EverQuest Next, we're building the content so it goes all the way down. So the world is actually layered with different things you can do. And these layers are procedurally generated. But what that means, so in most MMOs, if you need to find the dragon's lair, you can go look at the wiki or a strategy guide, or you can ask your friends and they'll tell you, the portal to the dragon's lair is here, and it's always right here. So then you can just go to the dragon's lair. In EverQuest Next, content is procedurally generated, so it's not necessarily in the same place. When you encounter it and then leave, it will change. And it will be changing all the time. So you're going to have to go through an adventure to find the content. So the very first thing I said was that we were reimagining the lore. One of the reasons that we're doing that is to make this work. We needed thousands and thousands of years worth of stories and content. We needed to create an entire archaeological record of this world so that when you encounter a lost tomb, it belongs to someone. When you find a dragon's lair, it belongs to some part of the story. And so if we go back to the last slide, you can see all of these things are actually adventures you can go on. The dragon's lair is here, and as you go through, you'll have these experiences. So let's take a look at Jelena and Kishar, see what happened to them after they fell through that hole. They fall into a magma chamber, and they meet a void Goliath. But remember that combat in EverQuest Next involves a lot of movement. Look at how much the characters are knocking each other around and positioning against each other from better angles. How destroyed this environment is. And remember, that was one NPC and 2 player characters. Imagine what's going to happen when the Earth Elemental blows the hole in the ground and your entire raid party falls through there. And there's 6 or 8 or 12 NPCs in there, and you're fighting them and they're destroying the terrain all at once. Those battles are going to be spectacular. So, our 4th Grail, now we've talked about how we want you to be able to change the classes to play the way you want and change the environment by destroying it. But one of the things that we've always wanted to do is give the players the ability to have a lasting impact on the game. The ability for your actions to matter, not just to you, not just to your players around you, but also to the players in the future. So in EverQuest Next, we're creating the ability for you to create permanent change. And the way that we're doing this is through a mechanism we call rallying calls. I'll give you an example. The Combine Accord has decided that this beautiful valley is the perfect place for a new city. So they've sent NPC settlers here to settle the land and build the city. Now, there are all kinds of dynamic quest opportunities available for everyone on the server, such as exploring the territory around the city, see what's there. Harvesting lumber to help build the city. So harvesters can harvest it, crafters can build the city. And then, because our characters, our NPCs have likes and dislikes, chopping down the trees has angered the goblins. They don't like it when you do that. Now adventurers are needed to fight the goblins and keep the city safe. As our players are doing these things, they're actually progressing the story. The city is getting built. And so the world changes. Now the city is partially built, and now additional opportunities present themselves. The goblins have coordinated and are now launching strikes at the outlying villages. We need adventurers to save the villagers, repel the goblins, and put out those fires. The citizens want stone walls to to protect themselves. So harvesters need to go down into quarries